remember, because we had our 2 children and we were absolutely up shit creek, and I remember standing in Te Papa and you took a phone call from BNZ and he basically said, we can't, there's nothing we can do for you, like there's nothing. And I just, the feeling that we felt that week was just, it was like, how are we actually gonna, like, what's gonna happen here?
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Hustle. Kia ora, my name's Anton and this is my beautiful wife Jess, and we appreciate you joining us for, this is going to be our 3rd episode.
Yep.
Tuatoru. And today, what are we going to be talking about, babe?
Business.
Business?
Doing business together.
Yeah.
Life.
Ups, downs,
yeah.
Challenges.
Yeah, how we made it work.
Cool. Love it.
We don't always make it work.
No, I think we do. Not necessarily well, but like I think Simon Sinek, you know, he said it quite well. He said the goal of business is just to stay in business.
Yeah, true.
And we're still in business.
Yeah.
We've made a lot of mistakes along the way, which I'm sure we'll get into. But we're still in business, so we're still making it work.
We are. Okay, let's start.
You kick us off.
How did our business journey begin?
How did it begin? Well,
I think you should start with high school.
High school?
You.
Well, I've always had a sort of an entrepreneurial bone in my body.
Spirit.
I've always enjoyed, I think, creating value for people. And so ever since when I was really, really young, we're talking 11, 12, I was fortunate to be born into a home where we had like a DVD burner. So this is back in the day before fibre broadband.
Yeah.
And so we had a pretty good internet connection, and we had, I think, like 10 or 15 gigabytes worth of bandwidth, which was a lot back then.
Yeah.
And so I was able to get home from school, download music, videos,
Bit of LimeWire.
a little bit of Kazaa, LimeWire. But I was able to download stuff, and then critically, I was able to burn that stuff onto a CD or onto a DVD. And this was back in the day where you could go to Dick Smith Electronics when they actually had stores, and you could buy a stack of sort of 20 blank DVDs or CDs for about $20, really. So I was able to burn those CDs for about $1 each, and then sell them for sort of $5 to $10 each, depending on what they were. And that gave me my sort of first experience when it came to creating value, selling something that was valuable to somebody else, and putting money in my pocket. And probably I was addicted from that point. Which is probably not a good thing. But if I think back to what I was addicted to the feeling of having some independence, because having some money in your pocket gave me the ability to shout dinner once in a while. And although mum and dad, they certainly didn't need me to shout dinner, I felt good being able to, and being able to offer to shout dinner. Or actually, you know what, there was a year where I really wanted the boots that Dan Carter had. And they were like $250 or something stupid like that. And you could get a good pair of rugby boots or a good pair of league boots for sort of like $80. And mum and dad said, just get the $80 pair, mate. Like they're going to do the same thing. But I really wanted the Adidas. I wanted the ones that Dan Carter was wearing. And they were about 3 or 4 times the price. But because I had some money in my pocket, I was able to cover the difference. So I was addicted to that thing.
Yeah.
Probably not a healthy thing, but that's the truth. Yeah, so I was able to, and I was working lots. So I had a job, working at Hallenstein's. Actually, at that stage, I might have been working at Sunglass Hut. I was a bit of a mall rat. Worked my way around the mall. A couple of late nights, weekends, all that sort of stuff. And I'd managed to stack some cash in my pocket, and I was able to buy a pretty nice car. To this day, no idea how the mechanics of a car work. I really don't.
Don't ask Anton to fix your car.
And I don't intend to go and learn.
No, yeah.
But what I did learn how to do was I learned how to tint a window. I learned how to install a head unit. Oh, yep. Which was pretty cool back then.
Our kids probably wouldn't even know what that is.
No idea what a head unit is.
Yeah.
So I was able to teach myself how to install a band expander, and then also critically put in a nice wee head unit that had blue lights and stuff. Yeah. And so I just taught myself how to do some basic things like that. Taught myself how to install 6x9 speakers and subwoofers and all the rest of it. So to cut a long story short, I was able to buy a reasonably affordable car, make some pretty light upgrades, and I was able to sell that car for $500, $600, $1,000, $2,000 more. And so that became quite addictive. And I sold about 6 or 7 in a year. And the way I did it was I would buy the car for me, I'd do it up, and then I'd sell it, make some money, buy a newer car, a nicer car, do the same thing again. So I was really flipping cars.
Yeah.
I was at a stage now where I was getting quite interested in alcohol.
Yes.
And so I taught myself. I had a few friends that had kind of dabbled in homebrew, but they were homebrewing beer. So they would go down to the homebrew shop, they'd buy a mix, you'd add the water, add some yeast, kind of take care of the mix, and after a week or so, you were left with a pretty pungent, often not very nice
Something.
Beer. And I wasn't interested in that. That was basic. Anyone with a few bucks could do that. I was interested in the spirits. Yeah. So, if you go and ask Mum, she'll tell you the laundry was
I can imagine.
my zone.
Yeah.
So I would start by creating this kind of sugary, you start with sugar, water, yeast, and you create this not a very nice mix. And then if you took the alcohol reading, they call it ABV, alcohol by volume, if you took the reading, that was kind of around 5 to 6% at the end of it.
Yeah.
But then you would take that mash or that big kind of container of sugary alcohol water, and you would distill out all the ethanol, which is alcohol. And so what you would be left with is, as the alcohol would evaporate, it evaporated at a lower heat than water. So as it would evaporate, it would leave behind the water. And so what you were left with was an almost pure alcohol, roughly kind of 95, 96, depending on how good you were at hitting that special temperature.
Yeah.
And so I was left with, let's just call it alcohol, at sort of 90%-ish ABV. And then the trick was to then mix it back to an acceptable alcohol by volume percentage, which was generally somewhere between 37 and 45. And then you would add flavour. And so that became a very lucrative business for me, because a lot of my friends were interested in drinking gin, but didn't have the money necessarily to go across the road and buy the $50, $60, $70 bottle, but wanted the hit. So I was able to provide them with what they were asking for. And
being one of those people.
You were one of them. You're a great customer, and I appreciate your custom.
What a time.
What a time. And they were selling for $20. So I was making good money on top of my normal wage, and I did that for about a year, and eventually, we actually got together, and when we got together, I'd sort of stacked away about 30-ish grand through, a year or two of making these spirits, and that was actually what we used for our house deposit, if you remember. So I guess
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So that was kind of those were my early experiences when it came to business, and of course, none of those businesses were registered, they didn't pay any tax. But what I learned was the art of trying to create value. And there were lots of things that I tried to flip that didn't work. People were like, I'm not interested in that. But when I found something that people were interested in and were prepared to pay money for, I tried my best to try and hone the skills, become more efficient, produce it better, faster, whatever, and sell more of it. And so I really, for a long time, was very, very interested in business. And then, as we've touched on, I went to university, got a teaching qualification, went and got a real job. Didn't like my real job. Felt like, there was this big part of me, which was this entrepreneurial spirit that you talked about, that was kind of being suppressed because I had to grow up. It's time to grow up, Anton.
Well, we were pregnant.
So I definitely had to grow up. But I wasn't ready to grow up.
No.
I didn't want a real job. I wanted to be in business. And that was really, I guess, the point in which I said to you, and you encouraged me, which I'm grateful for, I don't want to do this career thing. I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I want to get back into business. My whole time I was through university, you and I were working in hospitality. We understood what it meant to serve people, look after people, show them a good time.
We thought we knew everything we needed to know about.
Wow, yeah, but
that stuff.
Yeah, we were young and dumb. But we were energetic and we were keen. And so you touched on it in the last episode. My nana had passed away around about the time that we were getting together. And after her entire estate was settled, Mum and Dad were going to give 10,000 to each of their tamariki. And somewhere along the way, and we thought, this is amazing. We had a leaky roof. We just put the roof up. But then we sort of sat down and we thought about it, and like 10 grand, although it's a lot of money, is that really the legacy that Nana was going to leave, like a non-leaky roof?
Yeah.
Yeah, like is that really the best we can do? And so the idea was, why don't we pool our money together and let's have a crack at trying to buy a business?
Yeah.
Anton was leaving teaching. My siblings needed jobs.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad were just being awesome parents and going, yeah, give it a crack.
Yeah. I feel like when you look back on that, we were about to have a baby.
It was a bad idea.
Everyone just went, yeah, do it.
I mean, it wasn't a bad idea.
We did it.
We did it, but it was it certainly wasn't a safe idea. But we did it.
Yeah.
And so we bought Joe's Garage Sumner.
Yes.
Shortly after the earthquake, yeah?
We did. Yeah. Because Joe's Garage was a franchise we had a relationship with.
Yep.
Same as
I had worked at Joe's.
You had worked.
Had you worked at Joe's at that point?
Nah, I hadn't worked.
But you'd certainly you knew it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. We had our engagement party at Joe's.
Oh, we did too. That's right. Good times.
What a time.
Yeah. Well, it came down in the earthquake, which was pretty sad, but that was an awesome place.
It was very cool.
That was where I learnt to make coffee.
And it also probably gave us our hospo, Lone Star and that Joe's probably gave us the heart of what we still believe in when it comes to hospo, really, eh?
They were doing it the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was guest first.
Yeah.
The only time you say no was no problem.
Yeah.
You know, we had some pretty amazing mentors that taught us how to do service the right way.
The best. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had very high standards, and they were difficult standards to meet at times, but they set us up for success, 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the opportunity came up shortly after the earthquake.
Yes.
Because the owners of Joe's Garage Sumner had a lot going on. They had insurance claims. Sumner, which is where they were living, was hit pretty heavy after the earthquake. I think from memory
all of Sumner was struggling, the businesses.
Yeah, what you remember, people were scared to go past Red Cliffs. So on the way to Sumner, for those of you who don't know, you got to go through Red Cliffs, and Red Cliffs was a cliff, and a whole bunch of rock had fallen down, and so they had those ugly shipping containers.
The shipping containers all the way along.
And it was a constant reminder. Every time you drove through Red Cliffs, it was a constant reminder of the earthquake. And so I think a lot of people just kind of didn't go out there. And so we took the opportunity.
Yeah.
And we bought the business.
With a 3-week-old.
3 weeks.
3 weeks old when we took over. The day we took over, she was 3 weeks old.
I mean, I remember the day that we took over.
Yeah.
Because our whānau came down and we spent the whole day there.
That day. That day the business was closed.
That was the only day we closed. Yeah. We closed for one day.
Yeah.
Put a sign out the front and we said something like, under new management, we just...
Open tomorrow.
Come back and see us tomorrow. And our whānau spent the whole day...
The whole whānau was there.
Yeah. And we just tidied it up.
Yeah.
Gave it a good clean. And it was time for us to kind of put our stamp on it.
I just remembered thinking about that actually, because obviously we pulled that money together. But do you remember we were 20 grand short? And we had to get a $20,000 loan, a business loan.
Got it from ASB, yeah.
Well, eventually, do you remember it was like everyone said no, 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 no. We just got no's left, right and centre. And we, interestingly, just happened to get a person at ASB who was really young. His name was Nick.
Nick, yeah. I was about to say that.
Person at ASB, we banked with ASB at the time. Yeah. So our house mortgage was with ASB. Yeah. We had very little equity because back in those days, I think we bought our first home with 6%. So the equity that we had was not much. So we weren't borrowing against it. No. So
we had a lot of enthusiasm.
And we got rejected over and over and over again. And then this guy, Nick, was like, oh, yeah. And he just believed in us and just for some reason fought for us. And we finally managed to get that last 20 grand over the line.
That's been our experience, though, when it comes to banks.
Every time.
It's always just about getting the right person.
Yeah.
Because that person then goes and advocates to their boss.
That's right.
Yeah. So if the person that you're talking to
doesn't believe in you,
or you don't have a relationship with them, they'll just say to you, it's too hard basket.
That's right. Because they'll already think to themselves, it's going to get rejected. Yeah. I'm not even going to try.
No. Or it makes them look stupid.
It does.
They go to their boss with a terrible idea. Their boss is like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Be better.
Yeah.
So we needed a working capital loan, right? We were able to pull together enough money to actually buy the business.
Yeah. Someone gave us that advice around working capital. I can't remember who.
But we needed money in the bank on day one to pay for things.
Yes, we need an overdraft as well.
Basically an overdraft, yeah. So we got that. Yeah, that's right. So humble beginnings.
Yeah.
We bought Sumner. Do you remember I vividly remember after we went unconditional in that business, we had a few months before we actually took over. And I remember going out remember sitting down with you and thinking, who's going to work at this place? Because a lot of the what we had heard was that the staff that were already at the business weren't interested in working for us. They didn't know us from a bar.
They were loyal to their current owner.
They were really loyal to the owner that we were buying it off, and for, I guess rightfully so. They didn't know who we were. We were young.
They were probably thinking, what were we, 23 maybe at the time?
Like
24 maybe?
Yeah, so we were young to be business owners, but I remember us thinking, well, if we're not going to have all these staff, we need to assemble a team. And I remember going and talking to some of the people that you and I had met over the years working at Lone Star and at Joe's, and saying to them, hey, we're about to... It was almost like we were going on this adventure.
Did you that?
Yeah, we were opening it. Well, we weren't opening. We were taking over a business on the other side of town. So it was a pretty hard sell, but we managed to get an amazing rock star crew together of hospo superstars, and we couldn't afford them. No. We didn't know that at the time. To be fair, we didn't know that, but it was the best mistake we ever made. Was employing staff that we couldn't afford, because what it meant was that on day one, when everyone saw that sign at the front that said, under new management, come back tomorrow. Yeah. When they eventually did come back the next day or the day after, the level of service and manaakitanga, hospitality that they received was like chalk and cheese. Yeah. Like, it was so different from
what they'd had in the past.
And we didn't know that.
We were so service focused.
Yeah, we didn't know that, but that's what people told us. They went, well, something in here's changed, the energy. So that business, we had that for what, 3 years, 4 years, something like that?
Yeah.
We took it over, then the Causeway closed for 6 months.
Yeah. Which is the only route out to Sumner without going on a massive detour. So
that was fun.
We had a tiny baby.
I remember her sitting in her capsule.
Yeah.
On table 5, underneath the speaker. She grew up in that. She grew up in that space, right?
She did.
She grew up with people.
We quickly recognised that with a new baby and you driving out to Sumner every day. I think at the time we had one vehicle.
Yeah, we did.
That this wasn't going to work. Oh, and our house needed earthquake repairs. So we rented across the road. We actually just so happened through a family connection ended up renting a townhouse literally directly across the road. That's right. Which was the best and worst thing, because it was like so great, because I would just come across the road with Adia, but also we lived and breathed, and everyone knew we lived, and the staff, there was a couple of times we had staff knocking at the door.
Yeah, because the music had gone off. Or like, oh, do we have marshmallows?
It was the best thing. It was the best thing.
You're right.
Yeah. And we got to know the community.
Yeah, and that was a big part of it. I think we kind of had to show the community that we were prepared to step into their world in order for them to support us. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we have Sumner now for a few years. Yeah. It's a labour of love, very steep learning curve. Because like you said, we knew the front of house stuff. Yes. We knew how to show people a good time.
We had no idea what GST was.
Or any of the tax.
PAYE. We had no idea what an invoice was.
Yep.
We didn't know that you had to reconcile anything.
Didn't know what zero was.
Didn't know what zero was.
Bookkeeping? Nope.
Nothing. No idea about it. And I think ignorance was bliss at that stage, because we were young. We felt like we had nothing to lose, I think. Yeah. We didn't realise what we had, it was just like, yeah, let's do it. Which there are times now that I wish we could get that, attitude back.
What attitude?
That feeling of just, having no idea what it could be like to fail. Not knowing what that felt like. And so just being able to just go for it without knowing what that felt like.
Because we hadn't failed at that stage. No. So everything that we were doing was...
We didn't know what to be afraid of.
Was working, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't know what failing felt like.
So that's 2012, 2013?
2013, beginning of 2013, January.
So by the time 2015 rolls around, we've got a grip on things. Yeah. Things are going well. We decide that we want to open our own business from scratch. Yes. And we know Joe's.
We bought the building.
At Sumner.
Yeah, remember, along that path?
That's right. The opportunity. The landlord sold the business or the building. Yeah.
And again, unheard of today. We bought it with no deposit.
100% finance.
Yeah, 100% finance. Isn't that insane?
We had an amazing bank manager who was very creative. Yeah, we bought that building. And then when we sold, so we later sold that business. Yeah. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah. I mean, first of all, we decided to open another business. And we knew Joe's. There was an opportunity out west, right? We saw this migration of people from the east side who were being red zoned. Yeah. So they weren't able to rebuild on their land. They were being paid out by EQC, and we're trying to find a new piece of land to be able to rebuild. Yeah. And a lot of people went out west. A lot of people went out north. A lot of people went out west.
Yeah.
And the west side was really underserved as far as good hospo.
Yeah.
And right in the middle of Wigram Skies, it wasn't Wigram Skies at that stage, it was just like this new subdivision out in Horsell, next to the Air Force Museum. Ngaitahu was the landlord, Ngaitahu Property, and they said, we're going to build this kind of outdoor mall, it's going to have a supermarket and a chemist, and we were thinking a cafe. You interested?
Yeah.
And we said, yep, we're interested. And my family lived just down the road. Your mum and dad just built.
Yeah.
And they just moved in. They were like one of the first homes to move into Wigram, from memory. One off.
Yeah.
So it made sense for us. That's where our whānau were. And we opened Joe's Garage Wigram. Built it from scratch.
Do you want to talk about having a business partner?
Sure. Look, I had a really good mate who was looking for a change in his career. And I said to him, well, we're about to open this business on the other side of town. Would you be interested in going in as a partner? And to be fair to him and to his whānau, I don't think we had enough of the really difficult conversations at the beginning. And there was this total...
Again, we didn't know what we didn't know.
Well, everyone wanted the best. Like, everyone wanted it to succeed. But what you learn in business is that having clear expectations is really, really important. Yeah. And I had perhaps unreasonably high expectations of what it meant to be a business owner.
Yeah, but I think you know that now about yourself, even if in general you have unreasonably high expectations in general of a business partner, if that makes sense, which is why...
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So...
But you didn't know that at the time.
No. Well, no, I didn't. I just thought everyone...
Everyone was the same as you.
Yeah, I thought everyone who owned a business would think the same way as I did. And...
So we opened Joe's Wigram.
We opened Joe's Wigram in 2015. June?
Yeah,
June 2015. Yeah. And what we learned very quickly was that Joe Sumner, when we took that over, it was very much an owner-operator business. So you and I were the faces of the business, and then we had staff, and everyone worked really, really hard. But if we weren't there, a guest came to expect to see the owner there.
Yeah.
And they liked
that was the norm.
They liked having a relationship with the owner where they could come to us and say, hey, I had a great time, or this was terrible. And we were there.
That you always worked in that business right from the get-go. You were there 6 days a week, sometimes 7, until we had to rein it back in. And
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. That was a big part of it, was building that rapport with customers, being an owner-operator. It was very much, you're right, an owner-operator business. And all of a sudden...
Getting to know us and who we were. And then, so when we opened Joe's Wigram, you can't be in 2 places at once, right? But this new business needed my time and attention. And so I found myself over in Wigram, working in that business a lot, getting it established. And consequently, we'd put an amazing manager in at Sumner, who was actually probably better than me at most things. But one thing they could never be was the owner. And the people who had come to expect to see the owner were no longer seeing the owner. And many of them saw that as a sign of, the owners have checked out.
They don't care anymore.
Which was totally wrong.
Yeah.
Of course we cared, but we were just trying to do this other thing.
Yeah.
And so what we realised very, very quickly was that we had actually built that business in Sumner in a way that it required us to be there. We had to, because we didn't have a job. So it was our job as well as our business. But moving forward, what we were really interested in doing was building a business that could run under management.
Yeah.
Which is a whole entirely different challenge.
Yes.
Hey, would you agree?
Definitely, yeah.
Because the business now has to be able to make enough money to pay managers to run it and operate it, as well as generate enough money
for you to take a wage.
Because it was my only source of income, our only source of income. So that was a real challenge. And what we had to do was we had to sell Joe Sumner. And we sold the business as well as the building.
Together,
as a package. And then decided...
Well, that allowed us, because the business partner relationship was quite strained, because...
It was. That's right.
Again, it all comes down to expectations. I think you're right, you had high expectations. I think you don't know what it's like to be in business until you're in it, and it just wasn't working.
it wasn't working. And I'm gutted that it didn't work.
Yeah.
And we've since, had a conversation about that and repaired the relationship to a degree, but it was pretty tough there for a while.
Yeah.
And so, we had to have that very difficult discussion at some point that we're going to have to buy you out.
Mm-hmm.
Buy you
And
out
that
and go our separate ways.
Sale allowed us to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that was actually part of the reason why we put Joe Sumner on the market. We sold it because we needed to raise the money to be able to buy our business partners out. So we exit Joe's Sumner. We still have Joe's Wigram. Joe's Wigram is getting busier and busier. It's trading really, really well. We're getting a great reputation in the community. And we think to ourselves, there's a decent chunk of the week where we're turning people away because we just can't fit them inside the building.
Yes.
Why don't we open another place? We'd had to go at buying a going concern at Joe Sumner. We'd had to go at starting a franchise from scratch, Joe's Wigram. Why don't we have a go at trying to do something on our own?
Yep.
And so the idea was Fash. Yes. Tell us a bit about Fash.
Well, I think we had always observed, and we had this kind of little something where we felt like fish and chips in New Zealand were average at best. Like we had this really cool thing that was so Kiwi to have fish and chips, and we were like, oh, there's a way we could do this better than everyone else is doing it. And so that's kind of where the idea of Fash started from, was just to do, I remember doing some research trips with the kids to what people were calling the best fish and chip shops in Christchurch.
That's right.
And just going and having a taste. We've got a photo of the kids sitting in the boot of the car eating fish and chips together.
That was one of our research trips.
Yeah, I think it was pouring down with rain at the time, and we had an SUV, so they were sitting in the boot, all rugged up in their jackets, eating fish and chips.
Yeah, good times.
And so that's kind of where the idea stemmed from.
And I think the other thing that we were really good at doing when we had a young whānau was going out and eating a lot, because we worked in hospo and we were in Sumner so often for so many hours of our week.
To town to get away from work.
That's right. We'd go, what are we going to do as a whānau? Let's just get out of Sumner. Let's go into town and let's go and eat somewhere. Yeah. So, and we used to love Tony's teppanyaki.
Yep.
And I remember that moment where we thought we sat down and I went, there's like budget Japanese food, and then there's really amazing upmarket Japanese food, which was that teppanyaki experience. There was also the same, there was like the cheap Indian takeaway that you could get, and then you could go out to a really nice Indian restaurant. You could do it with pretty much every cuisine. You could go and get a crappy pizza, and then you could go to a really amazing Italian restaurant and have a really amazing kind of wood-fired pizza made from scratch, and you could taste the difference. And I thought, there's no fish and chip equivalent, and yet this is such an iconic cuisine here in Aotearoa, and no one's really doing it. So that was enough, I think, for us to go, let's do it. Let's be that person. It was cool. And I remember us thinking, okay, well, what would an amazing fish and chip experience look like? We knew the service part was really critical, because you don't get no one walks away from their local fish and chippy going,
shit, that was great service.
Hospitality experience. No one does that, right? So you go there because it's cheap and fast.
Yeah, cheap and cheap.
It's not even that fast. Sometimes you're on a busy Friday night. It's cheap, let's be honest. People go there because it's cheap. And that was probably our biggest hurdle to overcome.
Definitely.
Right? Because we announced to everyone, we are going to build the best fish and chip shop that we can build. And everyone went, awesome. And everyone's biases around what they expect a fish and chip shop to be
stuck around.
They stuck around. And they brought those biases in when they came in, and they went, why is it's so expensive? We're like, it's cheaper than the restaurant across the road, which is selling the meal. It's
which is exactly the same meal.
It's exactly the same meal.
In a box.
Literally exactly the same.
You needed to order all that stuff. Bougie chips, all those things.
Yeah, but I think people say literally when it's not literally the same. Yeah. But this was, in this particular case, literally the same, because we owned the restaurant across the road. And the fish that they were using was our fish. The slaw that they were using was our slaw. Yeah. The tartare that they were using was ours. It was literally the same meal in a different environment. No one complained about the price. Yeah. Over here, it was cheaper at Fash. Yeah. And people were complaining about the price. It was really interesting.
We also had the idea early on that we didn't want, it wasn't a takeaway brand. It was about fish and chips and you coming, because we knew inherently that the service part of hospo is something we were really good at and a really important part of people going away feeling really good. And we wanted them to come into our new fish and chip store and experience really good service. And in order to do that, we needed them to come in. And do you remember we had no phone orders. No phone. Did we even do takeaways? We didn't do takeaways. We wanted people to come in, sit down, enjoy the experience of coming to Fash.
And we had, and our website was actually a web page. It was one page, and all it had was our address on it.
Yeah.
And it was like, come and find us here.
Yeah, no phone.
No phone, certainly no online ordering.
Yeah.
And it was all about come down, experience us.
Yeah, because we wanted people to, even if they were getting takeaways, to come in, order a beer, sit down.
We'd built this beautiful restaurant. We wanted people to come down and experience it.
Yeah.
And then they did come down, and they went, why is it so expensive?
Yeah.
I thought this was a fish and chip shop.
So, that was early days of Fash, and it was hard.
Yeah, well, it was hard trying to change people's perception.
That's right, yeah.
And you know what? One of the other things that I totally underestimated was how much mahi goes into building a brand.
Yes, yeah.
So because
we had done the franchise thing that was already built.
And people knew Joe's. Even though we got in around 2013, it was still a decade and a bit old.
Yeah.
So it had a reputation. People had some expectations around what a Joe's experience looked like. Fash was something totally new. We needed a logo. We needed a name. We needed to buy the IP. You know, we didn't own the website. Yeah. We needed to start the Facebook. Instagram, I think, was not a thing yet.
The Bible pages.
Everything, all the recipes, everything had to be built up from scratch. We had to organise someone to make our T-shirts, everything. And so the amount of mahi that goes into actually starting something is enormous, which we probably underestimated as well.
Yeah, totally.
But it was all part of it.
Again, ignorance is bliss.
Yep,
and you just do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay, cool. So we got Fash. Things are going okay. It's busy.
Yeah.
We get some good reviews. Once people understand, it's a restaurant.
Yeah.
And they know what they're walking into and what to expect. They chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
We get less abuse from people.
Yeah.
Man, we had some fucking dickheads.
Yeah, we did.
Hey, who just talk like, I don't know what it is about people in this country. I'm sure it happens all around the world, but people think that they can talk to service staff like they are dirt on the bottom of their shoes. Like, where does that come from? It's like, dude, you would not talk to your mum like that.
No.
You wouldn't talk to your children like that. Why on earth are you talking to this poor girl here the way that you're speaking to her? That's probably another co-popper that we can go into. Okay, cool. So people understand what Fash is. We're open, we're trading, everything's going good. Joe's is going good across the road.
Yeah.
Fash is going well. And then we decide, let's just keep going. Why do you laugh?
This is funny.
And there's a business in town.
Yes.
Which is up for sale.
Struggling since the earthquake.
Struggling.
Again, and we thought, well, we've done that.
Well, it actually boomed after the earthquake. One of the only places that you could go to. But then as places started to open up around town, it loses its
oomph.
And the owner's keen to get out. We recognise that it needs a revamp, a new offering, some new energy, and we think we can do that.
Yeah. You had lots of ideas.
Lots of ideas.
You had so many ideas.
I also had a guy that was working for us at the time, who I won't name, but he was also really keen to come and work in the business. Yeah. And together we sort of said, why don't we do it as a bit of a partnership?
Yeah.
You can operate the business, because we knew how important it was to have, I guess, someone who had that owner status, but that was working in the business. So why don't you operate the business, keep those standards nice and high, and I will manage the administrative side of things and make sure that all the bills get paid. And so we moved forward on that premise. And to cut a very long story short, that person who had intended to put in half the money didn't put in half the money.
But to our own mistake, we had already signed on the dotted line.
Yeah, we already purchased the business.
Making sure.
We purchased the business.
You know, we all make mistakes.
On a handshake.
Yeah.
And the handshake wasn't worth anything.
Yeah.
So that relationship quickly fell apart because all of a sudden, expectations weren't met. And on top of that, the business is struggling.
Yeah.
because this money wasn't put in, that meant that we didn't have the money to do the we didn't have the money to do the revamp that we wanted. So the vision never actually had the opportunity to come to life and breathe. So it was underbaked from day one.
Yeah.
And it didn't have the cash in the bank. So it was really sort of running off the smell of an oily rag from day one, which is not a good way to start a business.
No way.
We had some great stuff.
Yep.
The offering actually wasn't bad, but the space felt a bit.
There's a couple of really, like the ideas that we had back there, I really still love. I really love the bagels idea, and I also really love the kinds of food we were going with for the cafe type brand. Yeah.
And we had a business out the back, so it was actually two, because it went across the whole block.
Yeah,
like a restaurant. Yeah, had a restaurant bar on one side, and it kind of had like a cafe on the back. And so we ran those businesses, I don't know, for about 6 months or so.
Yeah. And
they weren't working. It was becoming apparent to us.
Yeah. And we were digging ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper.
They were losing money, right?
As you do in business when things start to spiral. We were just like spiraling deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think you don't realize how deep you're in it until you kind of go, holy shit, we're in this so deep and we can't.
And one of the mistakes that we had made was we had cross-collateralized everything. So everything was propping up everything. And so what that meant was that as soon as one of those dominoes begins to fall, it tumbles everything. And so we hadn't ring-fenced this particular business. And so we needed it to either succeed or we needed to get rid of it and cover our losses. So we sold that business.
For next to nothing.
And the stupid thing that we did was we were pulling cash from our other viable businesses to keep it propped up so that we could sell it.
Yeah.
And so what that meant was we were sucking cash from the good businesses to feed the terrible business. And when we finally did exit, sold the business, and we took stock of where we were at $961,000 in the hole.
Of debt. Yeah. And some of that debt was to the IRD, and the bank had written to us and said, basically, we've got wind of the fact that you are behind in your IRD payments. You can no longer bank with us. It was bizarre.
Yeah.
Hey.
We had a loan with them, don't forget.
But they didn't say anything about the loan because we had never missed a loan repayment.
Yeah, so we had a loan, a business loan with Westpac, and we had business banking with them.
Yeah.
And they had, you're right, we'd never defaulted on our loans. We'd
never.
always paid our loans.
Yeah.
But they wrote to us and they said, you can no longer bank with us. And they gave us a date. It was Aria's birthday, 14th of December.
Yeah, that's right.
We're kicking you out.
We're kicking you out. You can't have your accounts. Which, looking back, is the most bizarre thing because as soon as they took our accounts off us, they had no control over our money.
Well, they had no visibility into
That's
our
right.
accounts.
There was a weird time.
Well, yeah, I can't remember exactly what happened.
Weird.
But I know our lawyers wrote to them and said, from a banking point of view, they've done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
They've paid all their loans, and that gave us enough breathing room so that we could actually switch banks.
But you're right. We were $960,000 in the hole. We didn't own a home.
No.
All we had was happened to be a while ago. That was part of buying out of Joe's Wigram. And we were $960K, no home.
Call it $1 million, round it up.
That same year, a number of different things happened.
Well, it's 2017.
Your granddad died.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just had shit thing after shit thing.
Granddad died. So all of these things, all these pressures are coming in.
They were in the pressure cooker.
I don't recall ever keeping anything from you.
No.
I know, but I, so I know that we were always talking.
Yeah.
And I was trying to hold it together, but I was feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
Big time.
We went to Wellington for my sister's birthday, her 21st, and that week, basically, we'd just gone and visited your granddad, who was really, really sick, so we were feeling pretty vulnerable. We visited him while we were there.
He was in Palmy.
And I remember you were waiting on a phone call from BNZ to find out whether they would take on our banking.
That's right.
And take on the loans, I think, or something.
That's right. We were trying to move everything across to
and
BNZ.
Maybe borrow some money so we could, pay something else off and, consolidate and just keep things going. And I remember, because we had our 2 children, and we were absolutely up shit creek, and I remember standing in Te Papa, and you took a phone call from BNZ, and he basically said, there's nothing we can do for you. there's nothing. And I just, the feeling that we felt that week was just, it was like, how are we actually going to, like, what's going to happen here? I think we had talked about declaring bankruptcy.
Yeah, it was
and
awful.
At the same time, we were trying not to let our staff get wind of these, like, issues, because we didn't want anyone to get nervous. We didn't want anyone to think they were going to not get paid.
But we had those 2 businesses that
And
were
they were
actually
running.
good. They
That's
were
right.
viable
That's exactly
businesses.
right. They were really good businesses. It was just that we had got ourselves so deep in that hole.
With this other business.
Yeah.
So that's right.
We moved out of home.
Well, I had to jump on a flight, remember?
That's right.
I jumped on an earlier flight back home to come home and do damage control because we were running out of time.
Yeah.
You had to fly home with the kids.
Yeah, on my own, and that was so stressful because it was one of those, they were like 3 and 2.5 at the time, and it was one of those airplanes where you had 2 seats, and I was like,
Oh, so you couldn't even sit together?
well, I knew neither of them would sit next to a stranger, so I had to put my 2 little children across the aisle, and it was so stressful, and I was at the most vulnerable point that I'd ever been at, and I had the kids' iPads, and I was busy getting the kids' iPads out, and they were sitting there, and Mana had pulled his tray table down and was like banging it, and this man turned around and said, "That's very annoying." And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just trying to get these things organised. He's not going to do it anymore. And it was like, I would just never forget that moment. So the message from that is just show kindness. You just never know what someone's dealing with. And someone else came up to me after the flight and said, "I just want to say how well behaved your children were on that flight."
Oh, that was nice.
And I suspect he heard what had happened, but that's just a side note to the vulnerable state that we were in.
So after that moment...
we moved out of our home.
Well, yeah, that's it. So we moved out of our home.
Yeah.
And we go to the only place we can afford to go, which is
your mum and dad's.
My mum and dad's.
Yeah. And
we've got a big home.
Massive privilege for us. We have 2 sets of parents that would have taken us in. Just so happened that yours had a bit more room.
Well, they had 2 extra rooms.
They did. Yeah.
They got a big house.
Yeah.
So they took us in. Our salaries went from whatever they were at the time to 0.
Yeah.
Because the businesses could not afford to pay us $1. We had to... I remember we had 2 leased cars.
So my mum and dad took on one of those leases and started paying it for us because they were like, "We've got 1 car." Or I think they sold a car and they said, "We'll take on that lease."
Yeah, we'll take over the lease, take that off you. Yep.
To help us out.
So we got out of those kinds of things. We had the businesses couldn't afford to pay us. So we worked in the businesses.
Yes, for nothing.
For stupid hours.
Yeah.
Like we worked for 0.
I remember you having a conversation and it was like, we have to work this many hours. Right. I still needed to be with our kids, and that was a conversation that we had about in order to get through this, our kids needed to still feel really secure. And so I think you ended up doing like 60 hours a week. I did any hours I could. I remember, because we were living at your mum and dad's, we used to work Saturday night together. Then another night, and I think a Sunday day or something. Yeah.
And we asked the other 2 owners to take a massive pay hit. They still needed, they had their own bills, so they couldn't go to 0, but they took a massive pay. It was like over 50%.
Yeah.
And we just hustled.
Yeah.
We worked our asses off for 3 years. Mum and dad paid for our groceries, paid for our power, obviously paid for our rent.
Yeah.
And I remember, because we were holding out there was that Christmas, what had happened is that we were still spending stuff on our credit card.
And air points. We were getting air points.
Through the business.
We were paying for some stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We're putting business expenses on our credit card.
Yeah.
And the businesses were paying.
Yeah.
We were earning air points. And so we had this kind of, and those air points became like our income.
That's all we had.
And so when it came Christmas, we thought, what are we going to do? How are we going to, these kids, we're trying to put on a brave face, but our tamariki, they don't need anything, of course, but we wanted to be able to give them a nice Christmas. And everyone else, bought them amazing gifts, but we wanted to be able to do something. And so I remember us buying, we went onto the Airpoint store.
Everything came from Airpoint.
What can we buy from the Airpoint store?
Everything.
And I remember those gifts turning up, and they became our Christmas presents that year. Mm-hmm. Good time. And so, right, so
we engaged BDO. They engaged the IRD, a number of other parties.
And explain the situation.
Yeah.
And basically, we got ourselves into a situation that we couldn't manage.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, we hadn't not paid the IRD because we were being cunning
No, that's
or
right.
deceitful.
Yeah.
And we had to prove that. Remember, we had to argue that. We had to show the IRD that actually we were just stupid.
We just didn't know.
And naive.
Yeah, we were doing our best with what we had. Yeah.
And I remember the reason I mentioned the lease cars was because one of the things that went in our favour was as soon as we realised we cannot afford to keep these lease cars, we had to produce emails, text messages to show the ID that we'd done everything we can
to get rid of
to
offload everything. And
nice
part
things.
of that for the ID, I think, was us moving out of our rental, moving to family, that we weren't paying ourselves anything anymore.
We weren't hiding any money.
Yeah.
We were really doing everything that we could to try and keep these businesses ticking over in the flow.
And they could recognise, and with BDO's help, they recognised these are good businesses, both of these. There's a way out of this.
Yeah. These two are good. This one's sucked.
That's right. And it's drained
everything down.
Yeah. And so sure enough, BDO helped us get on a payment plan with the IRD. I can't remember what else we
we went on to a payment plan with pretty much everyone. We still had $960,000 to pay off, but at least everyone had a plan.
Everyone was getting paid, everything was good. And we weren't taking $100,000 salaries. We were
taking zero.
Living on nothing.
Yeah, Mum and Dad paid for us for about 3 years.
Yeah.
But I remember, do you remember the Working for Families tax credit?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
We went a whole year, remember?
Yeah.
And we hadn't earned a single dollar.
That's right. Yeah.
We hadn't earned a single dollar, you and me, and so we were entitled to.
It was like $10,000 worth of Working for Families that we thought we were entitled to.
Yeah, and it was going to get us through like the next 6 months. It was going to be huge. And however, because you and I had been working and everyone else had been working in the businesses.
I can't remember.
Well, what had happened was we'd been working in the businesses for zero. Yeah. So our wage costs were hardly anything.
Yeah.
Because you and I and Maya and Tim, we were working so many hours in the business and getting pennies.
And the businesses were actually making money.
So our profit and loss actually was quite good. But all of the money that the businesses were generating, all of the cash flow
was going to debt.
Was paying down those payment plans. Yeah. So our cash position had not changed.
Yeah.
Although on paper these businesses were making really good money because we were subsidising the wages, the businesses actually weren't generating any cash because all of that cash was going into paying down this $960,000 debt.
Yeah.
So we were really relying on that 10. It was like 9,600 or something worth of Working for Families. And I remember driving out to Rolleston. I can't remember why we were driving out to Rolleston, but I remember getting a call from our accountant after weeks and weeks of saying, when is this money coming? When is this money coming? They called us and they said, the money's not coming. I said, what do you mean it's not coming? And they said, your businesses are showing a profit. And I said, but there is no profit.
We haven't taken any of that. We were we haven't taken any of that money in our pocket. Yeah.
And they said, we know the IRD doesn't care.
Yeah.
It looks like your businesses are making good money and it looks like you're deliberately not paying yourself so that you can maximise the Working for Families tax credit.
And so
which was not the truth. Yeah. We just we explained why.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember that was just like someone had kicked us
where it hurt
into puku, and I was just like, this is so shit. So that 10 grand or whatever it was that we were relying on to get us through, because we couldn't even go out and buy an ice cream with the kids because we had no money. Yeah, yeah, that was pretty shit. Yeah,
but we hustled.
Yeah, we hustled.
We set up the payment plans.
We had 3 staff take personal grievances against us. Yeah, I can tell you exactly who they were. I can't actually tell you.
No.
Because that's the law. But I know who they all were. And all of them they felt really personal. Yes. And they felt unfair. It just, that period of time just felt like everything.
The world was against us.
Yeah. And it was really, really shit.
But I think it was really, I think people knew, staff probably knew to a certain extent, but I think we did probably a really good job of putting on a brave face.
Yeah,
I think, you have to. Because you have to do it for your kids, you have to do it for your businesses. When you've got really good, viable businesses, you have to put on a brave face to keep them like that. You don't want to spook people.
No.
And I think we did do a really good job of dealing with our shit.
We did have a couple of staff who did know all the nitty-gritty and gruesome details, knew the situation, and, actually
have had our back.
Yeah. And, a few of them said, what can I do? And we said, there's not much you can do. This is the situation.
We've got some people to be very, very grateful.
But a few of them were like, here's my personal credit card. this will pay that bill this month, and it'll get us through another
You can
month.
pay me back later.
And-
they had full faith. Yeah.
And Maya sold her car. She had bought a BMW. She sold her car.
Yeah.
And put that cash into the business.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there were some people that really
She loves that car too.
Oh no, she did.
She really loved it.
Maybe we'll buy her a BMW 1 Series one day. Just to say thanks. But
that
she,
pulled through, eh?
yeah, that really stepped up and had our backs.
Yeah.
And I know we'll never forget that, right?
Yeah.
So, pretty shitty times, but then eventually things began to
we
turn
just
around.
worked our asses off for those. Was it 3 years at your mum and dad's? We lived there longer than we've ever lived in any other home.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I've never lived in any other home, but
And I remember COVID. We had found out we were about to go into lockdown.
that's right. We had finally basically like paid off IRD.
We paid off everybody.
And business loans were paid off.
Everything. We had worked so hard for 3 years.
Yeah.
We'd managed to whittle that 960 down and going into lockdown, we actually had
Hardly any.
just paid off all that freaking $1 million.
And then here we are at COVID.
But we were going into COVID, and then I was like, oh no, what's this going to look like? So, yeah, man, what a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And then I think the next few years was just like head down, bum up.
Yeah, well, we had called to go. We managed to move out of mum and dad's. We finally got to that stage. Yeah. We haven't even talked about the real stuff with Fash. Did that happen after COVID?
No.
No, it happened while you were living there.
That was one of the things.
We're going to have to make this a 2-part.
Yeah, maybe.
Part 1 and part 2.
But yeah, no, there was obviously that whole corridor around Fash, which is probably a whole episode.
It is, I think. Yeah. And kind of going in that direction of Te Reo.
But we came out of COVID. Not long after that, we bought this house that we're currently sitting in.
Yeah. We just happened to be positioned because just before COVID,
We got pre-approval.
we got pre-approval. And
From
obviously
BNZ.
everything shut down. No one was doing anything. We got that pre-approval.
Before COVID, before
I
lockdown.
think so, yeah.
And then I remember us coming out of the first lockdown.
Yeah, and we went to the very first weekend of open homes, and we knew we were having a new baby, and
But the bank didn't know.
No,
Remember, the bank didn't know that we were going to have another baby.
Yeah,
And you weren't showing.
no, and I
And-
was terrified that if they knew that they would.
Well, not only that, if they because businesses were under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Right? There was
Yeah.
a wage subsidy and all of that stuff that was going on, and we thought we've got pre-approval.
Yeah,
It's still valid, but the bank can pull it anytime they
yeah,
want.
yeah,
We knew that we were having another baby. The bank didn't know that. We didn't know what the future of our businesses was going to look like.
yeah.
So we really had a very, very small window to buy this house.
Yeah, it was like the
open
first
home.
weekend of open homes after lockdown, and we saw this house, and it was like, cool, this is awesome.
This will do.
We
Yeah.
you did your thing where you hustled, and you said bring the, it was a deadline sale, and you said if you bring it forward,
Well, no, we made an offer.
oh yeah, that's
We made
right.
an offer that day. It was the first open home for this particular house.
Yes,
We just come out of
that's
COVID.
right. Yeah,
We made an offer, and he said, "Yep, awesome, thank you. We'll put that offer in writing. The deadline is in 2 weeks' time." I said, "No, my offer is subject to the
you-
deadline being brought forward until today."
yeah,
And he said, "I'm not going to do that. This is the first open home." I said, "Okay, well, I'm taking my offer off the table."
yeah,
He said, okay. What about tomorrow? Give me until 5 p.m. tomorrow. We've got a few interested buyers here.
Yeah.
I'm going to say to them, we're going to pull the deadline forward till 5 o'clock tomorrow. And so there was that 24 hours of just sitting there going,
waiting, hoping, yeah,
and finally no one had the courage to put an offer in because they'd only just seen the house. So we got the house.
Yeah.
That was cool.
yeah,
And we closed on it,
yes,
and we're still here.
and we're still here, and we love it.
That's a great
We
funny.
really love it,
It's a great funny.
and we're certainly not in any hurry to move or it works for our kids.
Yeah. Okay, what else?
When did it happen?
About 2 years ago.
Yeah, so a couple of years after
2022?
COVID.
2022?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we decided to keep going.
Yeah. I think
With
we'd seen trends, like dining trends had changed.
yes,
so
big time.
people weren't eating out as much
Yeah.
because of COVID. Everyone was scared.
Everyone was getting takeaways.
Everyone was getting takeaway and delivery.
The takeaway trade at Fash had skyrocketed.
Yeah, it's gone bonkers.
Yeah,
And so we thought, okay, this is quite a cool opportunity.
interesting. Yeah,
We can actually open a Fash
yeah,
without having this huge footprint. A huge footprint means higher lease,
yeah.
higher overheads, cleaning, power, all
Higher
that sort of
staff
stuff.
cost.
More staff because you've got to look after the dining room.
Yeah,
What would it look like if we opened a Fash that didn't have all of that in a much smaller footprint, cheaper fit out,
yeah.
but still serve the same menu?
It certainly didn't do what we thought it would do.
No, well, I think people came in expecting
to sit down.
Yeah.
To
And
be able to
you've
sit
built this
down.
brand, which is which is built on this whole idea of service, coming in, having a beer, having a wine, eating my fish and chips on a plate.
Yeah.
Why is this different?
Yeah.
And that was a fair enough question.
Yeah.
We didn't do a good enough job at, I think, educating the community around what to expect. So when they came in, they went, this is not what I expected. I don't like it. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also just so happened that we opened at a time where that community had the offerings all of a sudden went bonkers, and they went from having like 2 takeaway options to like up
12.
to like it's like 12, and then not a very big community.
No, it's not. The
options
population,
are huge.
population isn't there. Yeah, but we're grinding away, and I guess we're in a fortunate position that we don't have all of our eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
So we're just trucking along there.
It does its thing.
Yeah, we bought an existing catering company.
Yes.
We rebranded it
Yeah.
into Tātou Tātou. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, we recognised at some stage during our journey that there was a market out there for us to take catering to people. And we kind of dabbled in it way back pre-2017, and then it kind of got forgotten about.
Well, for a while we were running Wigram Catering Company.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Out of Joe's and Fash.
Yeah, and we just kind of dabbled in that catering world, and it was all just word of mouth, and we were kind of like, oh, there's actually
a
market here.
It
Like,
was just
people
another
want
income
this.
stream, wasn't it, for us?
It was another income stream to pay off all that debt. And then we decided that in order for that to grow, we needed more space. We needed a kitchen. So there's a road that we drove down every single day and had noticed this catering company wasn't for sale, but we sort of had a conversation, and we went, well, what happens if we just...
Well, actually, we went and looked at another one. Remember, we went and looked at another one. I was like, this is terrible.
That's right. And it was just awful and grotty. And
Jump back in the car. And I said, why don't we give that one down the road a call? See? And you're like, oh, okay.
So everything's for sale.
Yeah, for the right price. So we called her and said, this is who we are. Can we come by and have a chat to you? And I think she was a bit, well, not reluctant, but
I think she was probably taken aback, a bit surprised.
But on our way home, we swung by, had a chat to her.
Yeah.
Said, can I take some photos to show, our business partners? And she said, yes, sweet. And before long, we made an offer. We purchased that business.
Yeah.
Rebranded it.
Yeah.
Into Tātou Tātou, which is our current catering company.
Yep. Moved our offices to that same.
Yeah, that was cool.
Space.
It came with a little office. Well, it was actually to use it as like a storeroom. It was a storage.
Yeah.
But we turned it into offices.
Office, because that's what we do, makes things happen.
Yeah.
So now that's just been doing its thing. Again, it's just another income stream, another way to get out there, share our hospitality with the world.
One of the things I remember learning, Jay Abraham, I think he talks about it. He talks about business as being this, like a diving board. And if you have one pillar underneath a diving board holding it up, as soon as that pillar is damaged or falls away, the whole business crumbles.
Right, yeah.
Whereas his preferred way of building a business is like the Pantheon, which is that I think is a Greek building or a Roman building or one of those really old ones which has stood the test of time, and it's got pillars all the way around it. You'll recognise it as soon as you see a photo. And he said, you're far better off building a business with multiple pillars underneath it. And in other words, each pillar represents a stream of income.
Yeah.
And they don't all have to be the same.
Totally.
But I think for me, that gave us strength, having multiple sets of income, propping up our business. If one was only responsible for 2% of our income, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're always going to have the businesses that are bringing in 20, 30, 40% of your income. That's fine.
Yeah.
But even these little streams, they all add up.
Yeah, and then you can, the customer base that you have from the different businesses, you can utilise.
You can cross-market.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so... And it did, you're right, it did, people were... Because what I was doing was going out and doing these workshops, which we haven't talked about hustle education.
No, we haven't.
But I was going out and doing these workshops, and we were taking the food truck along. And in the beginning, I was saying, look, I'll do the class for free. I'll come to your workplace, I'll give you a free Te Reo Māori class, but you have to buy lunch from the food truck. And we're going to do it on a Monday, which for a restaurant, to be able to sell $1,000 worth of food from a food truck on a Monday was awesome.
Yeah.
So I felt like we were onto something. But then we would go to these places where there was no space for a food truck for whatever reason.
Yeah,
so
or you'd do a meeting in the middle of the BNZ building in town, and there's nowhere for people to come
you just
down
can't
and
park your food truck out in the street.
Yeah.
So we would take catering along, and people would go, this catering's awesome. This is better than the normal catering we get.
Yeah.
Can we buy from you regularly? And so that was really how the catering business was born. And now it's a catering business that does catering all over town. But it's B2B, business to business.
That's right, yeah. Which is a different, again, it's just protecting your businesses in other ways.
Yeah.
Because, just because the consumer is struggling, which we know people are struggling at the moment.
Yep.
There are certain types of businesses that are thriving, and so it's finding those customers and utilising that. So that's Tato.
So there's 3 other things that we probably need to talk about.
Yeah.
Hustle Education.
She's a long one.
And our 2 airport stores, which we've just opened.
Yeah.
Okay, so Hustle Education
was born out of that 2017, really, of you trying to make money.
Yeah.
Hey?
No, that's exactly right. So 2017, we're 960K in debt.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? How many streams of income can we... I mean, we tried to start a clothing line. We launched free Te Reo Māori classes as a way to try and, generate some publicity and PR. And one of the things that came out of that was businesses got to hear me speak and present, and they liked my style, and they went, actually, there's some people in our own business that would really value hearing you speak, and the way you teach is really great and it's engaging.
And it really started with just Te Reo Māori, really, eh?
Yep, just started with Te Reo. Yep.
Just basic, yep.
Basic, kei te pēhea koe.
And you taught that class so many times.
Hundreds, and I still teach it to this day. There's still a market for it.
And it just so happened that we also worked out that you had a real knack for making people feel comfortable, for teaching a subject that people were often afraid of, especially in those corporate worlds, in a way that they felt really, really comfortable.
And I also think the other thing that made it a little bit easier for me was I was a business owner.
Yes, definitely.
And I was a Te Reo Māori teacher. I was both of those things.
Yeah. So they could relate.
That's right. I could go into a business and I could talk business with the boss, but I was also a good teacher.
Yes.
And I knew my stuff. So it was rare, I guess it's still rare, to be able to go into a boardroom and have a conversation with the executive team and be able to keep up and actually add value to that conversation, and then switch and go, right, let's talk about te reo, let's talk about te tiriti, let's talk about tikanga. So, yeah, that business has grown over time.
Just on its own naturally, eh?
Yep. And I think over the next 12 months, I'm going to really focus on trying to grow that more, because it's one of those pillars in Hustle Group that really, there are very low overheads. It employs no staff. It's just me.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of your time.
It does.
But we're probably at a stage now where the businesses that are at a stage where you're able to go and do that.
Yeah. We've got amazing people looking after each of the businesses. Yeah. It frees me up to be able to go out there and get an unreasonable return on my time by teaching te reo, teaching tikanga, and helping to create capability and confidence in some of these bigger businesses. So that's Hustle Education. And then the last 2 are our new airport stores. Why don't you tell us about those?
Well, I think they've really been in the works for 2 years. Yeah. Maybe, since we first kind of got wind of the fact that there would be a bit of a change at the airport.
So you're talking inside the airport? Inside the airport. Because a lot of people, even to this day, they think I'm talking about
we're down the road.
Spitfire Square, which is outside the airport, but kind of in the vicinity.
Yeah. So, and that, I think we kind of always knew we wanted to do another cafe brand. We are at a stage in our business lives now that we would like to be able to grow and get bigger with our own coffee brand. Yeah. Obviously, we also were looking at growing Fash. There was an opportunity for us to put in for the airport. And we had some conversations with the airport. We initially wanted to look at doing a Fash out sort of where Burger King was.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was one of the options that was up for tender, eh?
It was, yeah. And we kind of went all in really to that first meeting, going, right, we're going to talk about putting a Fash there. That's what we want to tender for. But we quickly realised that the fast food offering really needed to be fast.
Yeah, the QSR, they were really after a proper, recognisable, quick service restaurant like a Burger King.
That's right. And in order to turn Fash into that, we were going to compromise on quality.
That's right.
And then we kind of went, actually, we're not willing to do that with that brand.
That's right.
And so with those conversations with the airport, we realised there was an opportunity for a space in the domestic departure lounge on the other side of security, which would allow us to potentially create a Fash, but also this coffee cafe brand that we've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we went from there.
Yeah, well, we already had this really good relationship with Ozone, which goes back over a decade, because Ozone provides all the coffee beans for Joe's.
Yep.
And so over time, we've built this really strong relationship with Ozone.
Yep.
So we created, in partnership with Maya and Tom and some really cool people that work in our business, a cafe brand called Tato Tato.
Yes. For the people.
For the people, Tato Tato. And it's built around amazing coffee,
Yep.
a great grab-and-go cabinet,
Yep.
and the
Toasted sandwich.
toasted sandwich, which was your idea. And
Which you hated.
I hated it.
Absolutely hated. I said,
was
we
like,
should do toasted sandwiches. And Anton's going, no, who wants a toasted sandwich?
Who wants a toasted
I was
sandwich?
like, toasted sandwiches are cool.
And you reminded me, imagine if I had shat on your idea
That is
all those
true.
years
Didn't have
ago
that
about
conversation.
Fash.
I did say that.
Because I could have very easily have said, who on earth is going to come to a fish and chip restaurant?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And so that was
I
a
made
moment.
that clear to you. I said, hang on a minute. Give it a second.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you're right.
And that was a moment of reflection. And I ate some humble pie. And I went, no,
You
fair
did.
enough. And to be honest, after I kind of started to think about it, I got quite excited about it.
Yeah, totally.
Because Tato Tato and the whole idea of celebrating the good old humble toasty is everything that we were trying to do with Fash. We were trying to take the classic fish and chip and elevate it.
Yeah.
And here we're taking, I mean, it's not...
You can go home and make a toasted sandwich with 2 pieces of white bread
Absolutely.
and spaghetti and cheese.
Yeah.
But we wanted to give you more than that.
But the bread we've got is like carb central.
It
It's
is
super thick. Like, think about super thick and then double it.
Yeah.
White bread, very carby,
Yeah.
lots of butter. The fillings...
Cheese sauce.
It's not
like
just
the cheese.
not just a bit of tasty or Edam cheese. It's proper cheese sauce with about
Yeah.
3 different cheeses all mixed in. I
Don't
mean,
give
it's
away too
amazing.
many secrets.
Well, you know, it tastes amazing. Lots of salt, lots of pepper,
And it's fast.
and it's fast.
Yeah.
So we've created. I'm really proud of what we've created.
Yeah,
It's-
same.
It's a really
I love
cool
it.
brand.
I'm
and
really excited for where it can go
so
one
am
day.
I. So am I. But for now, there's one Tato Tato. It's at the airport.
Yeah.
And it's sitting side by side with Fash Bar.
Yes. Yeah.
So we've got these 2 offerings. The kaimahi, the staff, in fact, you're wearing one of the T-shirts.
I am.
Represent.
Yeah.
Tato Tato on one side, Fash on the other. So our kaimahi work across both brands.
Yeah.
We open at
4:45.
4:45 in the morning.
Every day.
So it's a really interesting space to do business, right? Because it's all done around flights.
Yeah.
So we open early in the morning, 4:45, and we trade right the way through until the last flight is called. When there are delays, we like delays.
We do now.
Delays are good for us.
One.
We like
love
delays
a delay.
because that means that everyone's hanging out, and we hate cancellations.
Yeah.
Because then everyone goes home.
Yeah.
Delays are great because everyone hangs around, and when you're hanging around in an airport lounge, stressed out,
Yeah.
you go for comfort food,
Absolutely. Carby toasted sandwich.
right?
Or hot chips.
Or you go for beer
Yeah.
and wine and margaritas, which is also good for our business.
Yeah.
So that's been I don't know, a month or so into
Yeah.
2 months maybe into that business, and it's been cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's
I
been a
think-
great week this week.
Part of the Fash that particular Fash, is we had recognised that the food truck had been really successful.
Yes.
And like the kind of like trays of food really, really quick. Yeah. And so we kind of took the food truck concept and married it with our normal Fash concept, and they kind of married together to make what you get from the Fash bar. So because we knew in the airport it still had to be really, really, really quick,
Yep.
just like the food truck. And so we've kind of pared back the Fash menu in a way that it comes out really quick, but it's still fresh, hot Fash food.
Yeah.
And local wine, local beer, all that good stuff.
Amazing service.
Yeah.
Cool tunes.
Yes.
Te reo Māori.
Sport on the TV.
Sport on the TV.
Yeah. Lots
Awesome,
of te reo.
awesome service.
Yeah.
Everything that we stand for and everything we think a good restaurant or cafe or eatery should be, we've baked it into the brands, and it's a pleasant surprise, right? Because when you travel, we've done a bit of traveling.
Yeah.
When you travel through airports, your expectation of the hospitality that you're going to experience is very, very low.
Yeah.
So when you walk into the space and you get amazing service, great coffee, fast,
Yeah.
good food, really what we're trying to do is to redefine what airport hospitality
Looks like.
can look like.
Yeah.
And hopefully it will. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm hoping that other airports
Totally.
see it, they hear about it, and they go, we want you in
That's
our
cool.
report. That's my goal. And my goal is to have this in Tāmaki,
Yeah.
in Pōneke,
Yeah.
in Otepoti, everywhere. And who knows, maybe even in Poihakena in Sydney or Piripane, Brisbane, who knows?
Maybe.
But for now, we're focusing on Ōtautahi and we're enjoying doing business in the Christchurch airport.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed working with the Christchurch Airport.
Yeah, they've been great. There are some other things that we could have touched on. We haven't talked about the food trucks.
No,
we've
we
had
haven't.
3 of them.
Yeah.
We've now got 1.
Yeah.
That's probably another conversation. But maybe we can...
Probably fashion itself in that journey of bringing in the Te Māori and kind of the journey that whole business has gone on.
And is still going through. It's
Because it was another part of 2017 was the food truck.
Yeah.
And we used our last, however many dollars it was. And that's like the old, you have to spend money to make money. And we used what we had to buy a food truck. And we would work in it for nothing. And we would take it places. And it was just another income stream, making money, doing everything we could. But yeah, you're right. We haven't spoken about the food trucks. I'm sure there's other little things we've done along the way.
Of course there are.
But
it's probably enough for now.
We haven't even spoken about how we manage business life, but that's probably a whole nother.
Well, yeah.
That's the journey
we've
been on.
Yeah, we've covered the journey.
Yeah.
And we've covered the growth.
Part 1 of business.
And there's a couple of losses in there. There's some lessons. We haven't gone into details around some of the personal grievances and all that sort of stuff. But we can talk about some of the lessons maybe in the next episode.
Yeah.
But this has been a long one.
It has been a very long one.
So hopefully people are still hanging out.
Yeah.
And
what's the goal? What's the goal now? I think we're at a stage in our lives where our kids are getting older. And I certainly am kind of like getting to the point now where I'm like, I think for a long time I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even think about growing big because we've just come out of this like hole and now we're hustling and then we've had another child. Whereas it's touch wood, feeling like we've like kind of settled. We can see our kids getting older and it's like you can see a future where we can manage something that gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at, I think.
Nice.
I never planned on being in business.
And here you are. Yeah, I think my goals are similar. They're the same, you know. Whatever we do, we'll do it together. So, you know, it will always be... I mean, there might be some compromises. You might have to compromise or I might have to compromise. But whatever we do, it'll be united. But yeah, I want us to grow. I mean, at the moment, we're trying to grow to $10 million.
Yeah.
10 million being top line revenue. It's just a vanity number. That old saying... you know, income or sales, revenue, whatever you want to call it, is vanity. Profit is sanity. That's the bit that's left over. And cash is king or queen, you know. But, yeah, I think growing to that 10 million revenue will be good. We're on our way. We've probably got a run rate of close to 10 million now. We just need to tweak around the edges, and at the moment hospice is pretty tough, but that's part of the reason why I really want to lean into hustle it next year, really grow that, double it if I can. But yeah, look, just working hard, growing. Let's grow to 10 million. But if we hit our numbers, we get our margins right, that amount of money is more than enough for us to do the things today that we want to do. But then I think you and I both know that once we get there, the goalpost will shift, and 10 million will become 100 mil, and that looks way different to 10 mil.
It does. And being able to do that, I think, is a whole different, you know, like having a young family and all those sorts of things have also impacted where we're at and where we've been able to grow to and all that kind of stuff. So
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's probably a whole nother episode, is managing a family and how we've managed to do that.
Well, I'm hungry.
Same.
So shall we call that episode number 3?
Yeah.
It's been a long one.
That's flat. That was,
Appreciate you.
an hour and a half maybe.
Really?
Yeah, maybe.
Shit, son. All right. Well, look, thank you very, very much, everyone, for tuning in and sticking with us while we went and reminisced on that journey.
Through that roller coaster ride.
Been a roller coaster.
Yes.
And I'm sure we've still got lots of ups and lots of downs still to come. But wouldn't want to do it
hopefully someone found it interesting.
Hopefully. Wouldn't want to do it with anyone else, babe, except you. So thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate you guys. And we'll see you on the next episode of Beyond the Hustle. Until then, kia pai te rā.